Morning, everybody. Shavua Tov. I'm just going to mute everybody so that we don't get feedback. Feel free to unmute yourself. Jeffrey, I'm going to leave you unmuted so that you can do the reading. We've missed you the last few weeks. I've had to work extra hard doing your job. So it's nice to have you back. Let's get up on the screen where we are. We are in chapter 27 of Shmuel Aleph. Now, last week was Purim, so we didn't have a shiur. So I'm asking you to cast your minds back 2 weeks now to where we were up to. David and Shaul have had their second meeting where David cornered Shaul. He took his spear and his water, you'll recall. And like the first time, Shaul said, "Oh, I'm sorry that I tried to kill you. I won't do it again." David did not believe him. He did not believe him. I said something that wasn't quite correct last time. Paul corrected me. And that was, I said that Shaul did go and chase David again. He didn't. But he intended to, and we know that from the fact that David ran off to Achish, ran off to the Philistines because he didn't trust Shaul not to chase him. And Shaul, I think it was actually at the end, right at the end of the last chapter. Let me have a look. The verse says, yeah, David went on his way and Saul returned to his palace. That was the end of the last chapter. And then at the beginning of our chapter, verse 1, Jeffrey, please.
David said to himself, "Now I may well perish one day at the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than to escape to the land of the Philistines. Then Saul will despair of searching for me again, anywhere in the borders of Israel, and I will have escaped from his hand."
Okay, stop there. So that shows that David didn't believe Shaul. And if you just skip to verse 4, Jeffrey.
It was told to Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he no longer searched for him.
Stop there. Okay, so the way Jeffrey read that pasuk supports my view more than the translation on the screen, because who noticed the difference in what Jeffrey said and what's written on the screen? Say it again, Jeffrey.
It was told to Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he no longer searched for him.
What's the difference between that and what's written on the screen?
So one says, so that's the reason. One implies that was the reason he didn't search, and one just says he didn't.
Yes, correct. And so Jeffrey's translation, which I think is Art Scroll, is it not, Jeffrey?
It is.
Yeah, Art Scroll takes the view that I take, and that is, and I'm sure that this is right, that the reason that Shaul did not search for David was not because he was all his best friend now and he'd given up, but because he'd fled to Gath, which was enemy territory. Although I said last week or 2 weeks ago that Shaul did seek David, he didn't seek David again, but he did intend to, but couldn't because he'd done a runner. Paul's still not impressed, but there you are.
The simple Ivrit doesn't say that. That's simple Ivrit goes to the translation you've got on the screen.
It does, but it's a non sequitur otherwise. Unless you understand it the way Art Scroll understands it, the pasuk actually doesn't make sense. It's a non sequitur. It was told to Saul that David had fled to Gath, and he did not continue to search for him. What's the connection between those two things? The connection is that he didn't search for him because he'd gone into Gath, which was enemy territory. I stand by my view. I know you're not all that impressed with it, but I think you're actually digging your heels in on this one, just for the sake of it, really. But which is fine. I don't mind that at all. That's okay. Right. So, what have you got there, Michael? You're waving your living Tanakh at me.
It just says pursue in my translation.
Read verse 4 for us out of that translation, please.
Saul was informed that David had fled, and he did not continue to pursue him.
Okay, so again, it says "and." That's an accurate translation, but the implication is the same. So we'll accept that. I think even Paul will accept it, really, if we pushed him. Okay.
I have to admit, Stein's answer adds, as Saul's authority did not extend to the land of the Philistines.
Yeah, so he again also thinks that that was the only reason that he didn't. So, okay, we're almost all agreed that this rapprochement between David and Saul at the end of the last chapter was only really very superficial, and Shaul really, had he been able to, would have continued to pursue David and seen him as a threat. So what did he do? What did David do? Verse 2, Jeffrey, please.
So David arose and crossed over with 600 men who were with him to Achish, son of Maach, king of Gath.
Okay, let's stop there. So he went to the king of Gath. Now we've come across this fellow before. When have we come across this fellow before? In fact, David has come across this fellow before. Who can remember? Cast your minds back to chapter 21 of Shmuel Aleph. Okay, we had the story of Nov. Okay, and there we are, verse 11 on the screen, or if you've got chapter 21 in front of you, Jeffrey.
And David arose and fled from Saul on that day, and he came to Achish, king of Gath. Stop
there. That's it. We've been there before. Remind us, Jeffrey, keep going to the end of the chapter and tell us what happened last time David went to Achish. Correct,
the servants
Michael?
of Achish said to him, "Is this not David, the king of the land? Is it not of him that they sing with the timbrel, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands?"
So stop there. What the people are saying is, look who's come to town. David, the one who slaughtered our people. Not only has he slaughtered 10,000s of our people, who else did he slaughter? Goliath, correct. So what did these servants of Achish want to do to David? Yes,
Well,
wanted to do him in. So what happened? Verse 13, Jeffrey.
David took this matter to heart and was greatly afraid of Achish, king of Gath. So he changed his demeanor in their eyes and feigned madness while in their presence. He scribbled on the doors of the gateway and let his saliva drip into his beard.
Stop there. So David is frightened that he's going to be done in, and he acts like a lunatic. He starts dribbling and scribbling, and he acts like a Meshuggah. And what does Achish say? Verse 15.
Achish said to his servants, "Behold, you see the man is mad. Why do you bring him to me? Do I lack madmen that you have brought me this one to carry on madly before me? Should this person enter my house?"
So he says, Achish, I can understand it. I'll come to you in a sec, Philip. Achish says, I've got enough Meshuggahs here. I don't need any more. Let's get rid of him. Send him away. And so David manages to save his own skin by pretending to be a Meshuggah. Yes, Philip. 1 second, Philip.
There are quite a few cultures.
Hello.
What? Oh. Can you hear me? Oh, sorry.
Okay. רגע אחד. 1 second, everybody. Let me just stop you for a minute. Somebody's just come to fix something. I'll be with you in 2 seconds. Al? Can you let the guy in?
Nice to see you again, Leslie.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all again.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry about that. Okay. So, yes, Philip, what did you want to say?
There are quite a few cultures who will refuse to execute somebody. Well, I mean, in our cultures today, but in the olden days also there were cultures. If a man was thought to be mad, he was not touched. He was considered to be touched by divine intervention. The madness was divine intervention, and they did not execute them then.
That's interesting.
The same thing as here.
That's an interesting thought, because it did occur to me. So what? He's mad. Get rid of him anyway. Who wants a lunatic? Just kill him.
They didn't.
That explains it. That's very helpful, that Philip. Perhaps that the reason that he feigned madness was that he was no longer responsible for his actions. And as you say, maybe they would consider it sort of bad luck or bad form to kill somebody who was very interesting. Okay, that's good. Anyway, the point being, thank you for that. The point being that David has been to Achish before. Now let's go back to our chapter now. We're back on the screen with 27. It's a bit odd, is it not, that David what's he going back for? Correct, Barbara? Why? He's already had to run for his life, as it were. Why would he go back again? Okay, Michael, have you got an answer or just got a question? Just the question.
Sorry, you shouldn't have seen that.
Oh, I see. Okay. Right. Okay. So why did David go back again? What's the difference?
He's got 600 men with him.
Yeah. The two things. He's got 600 men with him. And there's also presumably, oh, for goodness sake. Hello? Ken? Yofi, תודה רבה. Bye. So he's got 600 men with him, and also presumably it was well known by this stage that Shaul and David were antagonists. Shaul was also the enemy of the Plishtim, and you will see later on that David plays on this and makes it clear that he is Saul's enemy. He's the enemy of Israel. And so, and he had a reputation. That was the other thing. He had 600 men with him, and he also had a reputation. What did he have a reputation as? Sorry, Barbara, unmute.
Fiery.
Yeah, fiery. And what was his job? What was his day job?
The shepherd.
Well, he used to be a shepherd. He's not a shepherd anymore.
He's a mercenary.
He's a mercenary, correct. Who? Oh. Then אשתי בחוץ, מחפשת אותך. אז החצבים 19. החצבים 19. לא, 19. Okay. People can't read in this country. They think 9 is 19. Anyway, never mind. So yes,
Johnny, this is Johnny. Can I just say something? All these phone calls to you, it's Israeli politics to keep everybody employed. So what they do is they use the most incapable people, so that they can come back 4 times. You understand? To keep them busy. That keeps them busy.
Don't even know how to read the number on the gate. Anyway. So he's a mercenary. He's a mercenary, and who did he work for? He worked for Nov. Yeah, not North, what am I talking about? He worked for
Achish.
Naval. Yeah, he acted as a protector for Naval's men. Naval didn't want to pay him, did he? And so he threatened to kill him and everybody that was with him. And who came along and saved the day? Abigail. And then Naval had a heart attack or a stroke, and David married Abigail. So David's got a reputation as a mercenary. He's got 600 men with him, crack troops. He comes to Achish. Achish sees an opportunity here, sees an opportunity to get David on his side. He knows that he's not well inclined to Shaul. And so this is a very useful alliance for both of them. David takes refuge with Achish. Achish then uses David's mercenary crack troops to protect him. And in fact, we see that David becomes the personal bodyguard of Achish. And so clearly Achish trusts him greatly, because otherwise he wouldn't be making him his personal bodyguard. So that's why he went to Achish the second time, because when he went the second time, he was in a very different situation than the first time. The first time he was on his own, running away, and had to feign madness. This time he comes with a reputation, he comes with 600 men, and he comes with a proposition. And so it works out very nicely. Verse number 3, Jeffrey.
David dwelt with Achish in Gath, and he and his men, each man with his household, David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the former wife of Nabal the Carmelite. It was told to Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he no longer searched for him.
Right, so there at this point, everything is cushy. David sat there with Achish, and it's all good. Now David is not quite satisfied with that. He's now in Gat, in the capital city there, with the king of Gat, with Achish. And he's not keen on this. Let's go on to verse 5, Jeffrey.
David said to Achish, if they have found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in one of the towns of the countryside, that I may settle there. Why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you?
So David says, I don't want to be here in the city. Give me a place. That sound familiar to you? I want a place a bit out of the way. That sound familiar to you? Who else did that?
The two tribes, wasn't it?
That's true. The 2.5 tribes. That wasn't what I had in mind, but you're right. The 2 tribes said to Moshe, let us stay on the east side of the Jordan. That's correct. But that wasn't quite the same. There's a much closer parallel where a group of people go into another person's land and ask for a separate territory for themselves.
Goshen,
correct. The Bnei Israel, the children of Jacob, went down to Egypt, and they asked for, or Yosef asked Paro to settle them in the land of Goshen, which was to the northeast of Cairo, northeast of the Nile, where the capital was. A separate area for them. This is a similar situation. David doesn't want to be in the capital city. Why did the Bnei Israel not want to be in the Egyptian capital, and they wanted to be in their own place?
So that they could maintain their culture.
To maintain their culture and to be separate from the Egyptians. The same thing going on here, but for a slightly different reason. David wants to be separate from the Philistines for a reason. And we will see what that reason is shortly. The reason is that David is scheming. David is scheming. And I suppose you could also argue that the Bnei Yisrael were also scheming when they went to Goshen because they wanted to be separate from the Egyptians. So now David says, give me a separate place. So where did he get? Well, what was given to him? Verse 6, Jeffrey.
So Achish gave him Ziklag on that day. This is why Ziklag belongs to the kings of Judah to this day.
Okay, stop there. This is a very problematic verse. You won't know that it's a problematic verse. Just reading it, it looks very straightforward. But there are a number of problems with this verse. Anybody look at that verse for a second time and tell me what the problem is?
It belongs to the kings of Judah to this day.
Well, there aren't any kings of Judah at
Bush.
this time, are there?
Occupation.
Us.
Well, there aren't any kings of Judah. This gives succor to those who say that the book of Shmuel Aleph could not have been written by Shmuel. Because in Shmuel's life, right, first of all, Shmuel's dead by this stage, and there were no kings of Judah. So there are various different opinions as to who wrote Sefer Shmuel. It is said that Shmuel wrote the beginning of it, and that Jeremiah, many years later, edited it and inserted this pasuk, because Ziklag was a place which belonged to to David and his dynasty after David became king of Yehuda, because King David became the king of Yehuda before he became the king of Israel, did he not? He reigned in Hebron for 7 years before he captured Jerusalem and became the king of all Israel. So this place, Ziklag, was part of his territory. So the first problem with that pasuk is it can't have been written contemporaneously.
Do they know where it is today, Ziklag?
I'm coming to that. I'm going to show you a map in a minute. And the second problem in this pasuk is that, well, you have to go back to Sefer Yehoshua. Sefer Yehoshua, I'm going to put it on the screen for you there. Sefer Yehoshua goes through all the different places that each tribe got. They're on the screen for you. I'm going to take off the blue because it's easier to read without the blue. I'll just read you the first. Just read us verse 20, Jeffrey, please.
This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Judah according to their families.
Right, stop there and skip to verse 31.
And Ziklag, Mana, and Sansana.
Okay, the important one there is Ziklag. Ziklag is said to be the inheritance of
The children
Yehuda.
of Judah.
Okay, there's no problem with that, is there? Because our pasuk says that Ziklag was part of Yehuda's territory. The only problem is if you go on to chapter 19 of Sefer Yehoshua, when they drew lots to see which places got which territory, which tribes got which territory. Read us verse 1, Jeffrey, on the screen, please.
And the second lot came out to Simeon, to the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families. And their inheritance was in the midst of the inheritance of the children of Judah.
Stop there. So Shimon got an inheritance which was in the middle of Yehuda. So you had a situation where you had a bit of Shimon, and all the way around you had Yehuda. And what does that include? Verse 5.
And Ziklag and Bet Hamar Kabot and Hazar Susa.
So the important one is Ziklag. So what is it? Does Ziklag belong to Shimon, as in chapter 19, or does it belong to Yehuda, as in chapter 15? So what are we going to do with that? Any suggestions?
Or does all of Shimon's land belong to Judah? Because Yehuda was supposed to look after Shimon.
Who says
But
that?
what?
Where did you read that? Or have you just made it up?
No, I didn't just make it up. I heard it.
Oh, okay.
Because Shimon was considered to be wild, and reckless, he was put in with Yehuda, and Yehuda was tentatively, I suppose, supposed to look after him.
So he overtook his territory then?
Well, Shimon was given part of Yehuda's territory, the city.
Okay. That's a good explanation. Any others? Okay, so what the Radak says that originally it was Shimon's, and then the Plishtim, the Philistines conquered it, and then it was given to Yehuda, and so it then belonged to Yehuda thereafter. But really, it was originally given to Shimon. So that's what happened with Ziklag. Now, where is it? Well, where is it likely to be? Where do we know? Where would we look for it?
Somewhere
On
in
the
the
border between the Philistines and Yehuda.
Yeah, somewhere around Gat, right? It's got to be near Gat. Okay, so here is a interesting article called "Has Ziklag Been Discovered?" Now, originally, when I say originally, until very recently, this was the suggestion. There were two suggestions. Can you see the map?
Yeah.
Yeah. There were two suggestions: Tel Esh Sheri and Tel El Huv, whatever that says. Okay, those were the two suggestions in the Philistine area. Now, very recently, when I say very recently, I mean in the last few years, there has been a new suggestion that Ziklag is neither of those places, but is a place called Khirbet Ra'ai, which is there. Okay, that is where it is, that red blob. There is Kiryat Gat. This is a modern map. There is Kiryat Gat. There is Lachish. Who can remember the 5 Philistine cities? I'll give you a clue. Gat and Lachish are 2 of them. What are the other 3?
Gaza,
Gaza,
Ashkelon, and Ashdod.
And Ashdod. Very good, Jeffrey. Excellent. So the 5 cities are Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Gaza, all on the border there. Let's just go have a look. Ashkelon, Gaza, and Ashdod. You can see those are all on the coast. And inland, you had Gat and as far as Lachish over here. So it has been suggested that this place here is Ziklag. And if you go back to our article here, this is a very interesting article because there are 2 main schools of thought about the archaeology of this period of time of David HaMelech. And the 2 schools of thought are Yossi Garfinkel, nothing to do with art, okay? Yossi Garfinkel, who, if I'm not mistaken, is part of Tel Aviv University, okay? He says, and they're sort of not a religious bunch. They think that this is where Ziklag is, and there's all sorts of different things that they have come up with archaeologically for this period. And there's another group of people at Bar Ilan University, led by Yisrael Finkelstein, who disagrees with just about everything that Garfinkel says. Okay, and he says this suggestion of Yossi Garfinkel is so unacceptable. It's unbelievable. There is simply no basis for this. I don't know how he got to it. That has to be taken with a pinch of salt, because these two archaeologists are at each other's throats for every single bit of archaeology. The other one tries to rubbish it. It's quite an interesting thing to actually read about. I once went on a trip where we went to a place called, which was thought to be the place of biblical Machanayim, which is in the story of is in the story of Yaakov Avinu. And again, there was this massive big row about between these two archaeologists about whether this was Machanayim or not. Anyway, either way, whether it's Chirbat Ara'ai or whether it is either of these two places here, Tel Esh Thingy and Tel El Thingy Majig, it's in this area, and it's close to this Geshurites place here, and it's in the Negev. So that's where we think it's one of those three areas, we think, and that's where David was. Now, verse 7, Jeffrey, in our chapter.
The number of days that David dwelled in the Philistine countryside was 4 months and 2 days.
Stop there, please. 4 months and 2 days. What did you say?
4 months and 2 days.
Okay, now what does my screen say?
Some days. Not a few days, some days.
Yeah, Jeffrey says 2 days. Did you say, Jeffrey?
Yes.
4 months and 2 days. Okay, where does the art scroll get that from? What does the Hebrew say? Vayehi mispara yamim, and it was the number of days. Asher yashav David b'stei plishtim, that David sat or dwelt in the field of the Philistines. Yamim va'arba'a chodoshim. Well, let's deal with the arba'a chodoshim first. What's that?
4 months.
4 months. And yamim?
Days.
4 months.
Days. How many days, Barbara?
A few days.
You don't know.
Say how many days?
Doesn't say.
Doesn't say. So why does Art Scroll say 2?
I've got a year and 4 months.
Oh, good. I'm glad you've got a year and 4 months, because we're coming to that in a minute. But at the moment, we're on Art Scroll. Art Scroll says 2 days. Yamim means 2 days. Why do they say Yamim means 2 days? Why does Art Scroll
Yomayim is 2 days.
Yomayim means 2 days, Johnny, not
Yomayim is 2 days, that's true. So why does Art Scroll say Yamim means 2 days? Do the Art Scroll translators not know Hebrew?
No, they know Hebrew, but they can't. It's the same thing as what I about Israel. There are mistakes.
So you think that's a mistake?
I think it's a mistake.
You think that's a mistake?
Yeah. Steinsaltz says
It could be that the minimum number for a plural is 2. So you either say Yom Echad or 1 Yom, which is 1, and anything more than Yom is Yamim.
Correct.
And
Hannah is absolutely right. We'll come to Steinsaltz in a minute, Paul, and we'll also come to the Living Torah, Michael. But let's just deal with Hannah's point. Hannah's point is correct. This is a very common grammatical thing, and it's a halachic thing as well. We need to have 3 judges for a Beis Din, don't we? Why do we need 3 judges?
You need to make a decision.
No tie.
Because you need an odd number. You need an odd number.
All right, you need an odd number, but why don't we have 5 then? Why 3?
Two Jews, 3 opinions. So I mean, 5 people.
One at a time. Philip, first Hannah.
I beg pardon?
Go on. Why 3 judges?
Because it says that the Shnayim Takum Davar, and you had another one.
Say that
You
again.
had some witnesses.
No, I'm not talking about witnesses. I'm talking about judges.
So that you don't get a deadlock.
No, witnesses is different. Witnesses, it says al pi shnaim edim, according to 2 edim, witnesses. Billy, you wanted to say something?
No, same thing. A piece I made them.
No, I'm not talking about witnesses. I'm talking about judges. Right. Who here comes to the Gemara Shia? Michael, you should know the answer to this. You have to cast your mind back 4 years. Okay?
Okay.
Right. I'll tell you what the answer is. When you have to go to court, the Torah says that you have to draw near to Ha-Elohim, to the judges, right? Doesn't say 2 judges. It says you have to, if there's a case, you have to draw near to Ha-Elohim, which doesn't mean God in that particular context. It means the judges. And it does not say how many judges. So the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin, which we learned about 4 years ago, that when it has a plural of judges, it means 2, because that's the minimum of the plural, exactly what Hannah said. Now, as you all then said, well, you can't have an even number of judges. So we add another judge and we've got 3. So the reason that we have 3 judges is because the Torah says that you have to draw near to Ha-Elohim in the plural, the judges. Plural means 2. So if we apply that to our pasuk, that he was there, Yamim va'arba'ah chodashim, he was there for 4 months, and Yamim, what's this? The minimum plural of days are 2 days. And that's why Art Scroll says 4 months and 2 days. Now, it's a bit of an odd thing that. Why would they tell us exactly 4 months and 2 days that he is there? And the answer we'll see in a minute. Before we go to that, Paul, what does the Steinsaltz say, please?
Steinsaltz says the translation of Yamim as a year follows Radak, citing certain versions of Targum Yonatan.
Okay, so wait a minute. Okay, so if he's talking about the year, we need to go to Michael first before we come to you. Michael, what does your Living Torah say?
What verse was it again?
7.
It was verse 7.
7. Okay. The length of time that David stayed in Philistine country was 1 year and 4 months.
Okay, so 1 year and 4 months. Now, does anybody see the word Shana in that sentence? No, because it isn't there. So where is the Living Torah and the Steinsaltz and the Radak? Where are they getting that Yamim means a year? David Marks, tell us, please.
Rashi.
You're muted, David.
Hang on.
There
Is
you
that
go.
done?
Yeah.
Okay, story of Rivka. Teshev Hanarai Hanu Yamim O Asor.
Okay. Yes. I didn't get that one up on the screen. You're right. When Rivka is when Eliezer goes and finds Rivka for Yitzchak, and you know the business with the well and the camels and the drinking and all that stuff. In the negotiations, it's after the negotiations, it says that she stayed Yamim Achadim. It says that she stayed a year. And Yamim is translated as a year. There's another halachic place. David, do you know where else it is halachically in the Torah?
Yeah, in Bahar.
There we go. It's on the screen
Yamim,
for you.
Yamim,
Jeffrey, if you could read verse 29 on the screen.
And when a man sells a residential house in a walled city, its redemption may take place until the completion of the year of its sale. Its period of redemption shall be a full year.
Okay, now, what that means is if you have to sell your inheritance property because you've gone poor and it's in a walled city, you have a chance to buy it back within a year. So if you're a purchaser of a house in a walled city, you have to know that the owner that sold it to you, the seller, can come within a year and buy it back. He has the right to buy it back. Now, the verse says, Ish ki yimkor beit moshav ir choma. A person who sells his house in that walled city, Geulata ad tom shnat mimkaro. He can redeem it until the end of the year of his sale. Yamim tiyeh geulato. Yamim, that same word, a year. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, but Johnny,
Yeah.
are you allowed?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, David, I'm just in the middle of giving a shiur.
during
I'll call you
that
back.
year, if he buys back?
So it says here, Yamim tiyeh geulato. A year. Yamim here is a year. So there we have a halachic proof and two Torah proofs. One that David told us from Rivka, and one here in Parshat Bahar. Yamim means a year. And that's where Michael's translation in the Living Torah comes from. That's where the Steinsaltz is quoting the Radak. So if we go back to our chapter, it's not some days and 4 months. It's not the Art Scroll 4 months and 2 days. It's Yamim va'arba chodashim. It's a year and 4 months. Now, stylistically, I think I prefer a year and 4 months, because it's a bit odd that they should tell us 4 days, 4 months and 2 days exactly that he stayed there. I mean, it's a bit strange. And we've got proof that Yamim means a year. Now, if we take the Radak's view, which is replicated in the Steinsaltz and the Living Torah, and we say that this was a year and 4 months, that leaves us with a bit of a problem. What is the problem with that? And now I'm asking you to cast your mind back a few months, not 4 years, maybe only, a few months, maybe 8 months or 10 months, to chapter 13 of Shmuel Aleph. Okay, before I take you there, let me ask you this question. How long did Shaul reign in Israel? How long was he king for?
I think at 40 years.
52 years.
Okay, so Jeffrey says 40 years. Michael Kraus says 52 years. Any other options?
4 years.
4 years, says Hannah. Anyone else? Any offers? All right. Turn to chapter 13. Verse 1, Jeffrey, on the screen.
Saul was here in his reign, and he reigned 2 years over Israel.
Now, let me ask you that question again. How long did Saul reign in Israel?
2 years.
2 years. 2 years. Okay, so 2 years he reigned in Israel. And if we say that David stayed with Achish for 16 months, a year and 4 months, that means that everything that's gone on up till this point with Shaul, Goliath, and Nov, and Naval, and the 2 episodes, one in the cave, and then the other one with the water and the spear, all of that stuff took place in the first 8 months of Shaul's reign. Not very likely. Okay, not very likely. And the Mefarshim don't like it. The Radak does like it, and the Radak says it means a year and 4 months, but it's problematic. It's problematic if we say that he was there for 16 months. On the other hand, we will see as we go on that Achish has great confidence in David, and you would expect that confidence would only come with time, and therefore maybe 4 months and a couple of days is not enough time for Achish to have such confidence as he does in David. So there are arguments either way, and this is the beauty of learning Tanakh in detail, is that we just don't know. but we see the different opinions, and we see where they come from, and we see the sources, and we see the logic behind it all. And as I said yesterday, those who were in the Pirkei Avot share yesterday, unless you know Tanakh properly, you can't learn anything else, because it is the basis of everything. Yes, Barbara?
Aren't numbers generally problematic? Because they say 600 men is not 600 men.
Yeah. Numbers of people are definitely problematic.
Right.
Time, when it's round figures, is often problematic. So it's David reigned for 40 years, or there was 40 years of peace after each of the different shoftim, etc. Yes, there's a lot of rounding up and rounding down going on, which is why this is a bit odd that it's 4 months and 2 days, right?
Yeah.
So you're
Rabbi,
right. One second. Numbers are definitely problematic. I have actually promised you one of these days to do a full series on numbers based on the book that David Marks bought me called Ani Ma'amin by Rabbi Joshua Berman. But I've still not quite worked my way through it because it's too clever for me, and I have to keep reading back over it to see where I've got to. But eventually, please God, I'll get through it, and then I'll share it with you, because it's very, very it deals in great detail with the problem of numbers in Tanakh. But you're quite right, Barbara, to raise that. The fact that this is so clear and gives a clear number means that we have to actually deal with it. And the fact that we've got different opinions, 4 months and 2 days, 4 months and a few days, 16 months, it's interesting. Does it really matter? No, not really, but it's fascinating. I think we've got, in this order, Hannah, David, and Jeffrey. Hannah first.
how when the Torah quotes Sarah's age, no, Rachel's age, 127 years. Where does it start? Sarah. Where does it start, with the years or with the days or with the year?
No, it doesn't tell us how many days. It starts with 7 years, then 20 years, and 100 years. But that's quite a common way to do it. Moshe Rabbeinu lived 20 years and 100 years. I don't think there's anything specific about that, which is...
No, it's a question whether one goes from large to small or small to large. In terms of, if it was
speaking, yeah, I see what you mean. So if we go from large to small, then it's a Yamim could be a year. And if we go from small to large, Yamim might be 2 days. I see what you're saying. That's interesting. Don't know. Good point. David.
Just to complicate matters even further, you said that Art Scroll here translates Yamim literally as days. But in the 2 sources we've looked at from the Torah, in Chayei Sarah and Bahar, Art Scroll translates them both as years.
Okay, lovely. I love a bit of Art Scroll inconsistency. That's wonderful. Thank you for pointing that out, Jeffrey.
Okay, so we going back to the story of David and Goliath. David is described as a youth, and if David slew Goliath and he was a youth, he was then given the marriage of Saul's daughter. It's too much. There are 2 more wives after that. Too much in 2 years. Come on.
But yeah, fair comment. All of this stuff took place in 2 years. It doesn't seem like it's 2 years, does it?
No, it's going to be longer. It
can't be longer. Well, the problem we've got is, in fact, this chapter here, chapter 13, where we're told that the Ben Shana Shaul b'Molacho Ushtei Shanim Malach al Yisrael. Now, what it could be is that what we're talking about here in chapter 13, which was the particular battle against the Pelishtim that we were talking about here, took place after he had been reigning for 2 years, which would make more sense according to Jeffrey's idea. But the Mefarshim seem to indicate that Shaul's reign was 2 years, and that they understand this pasuk as 2 years. as opposed to this was in his second year of his reign. David?
Isn't there another way of explaining that's the 2 years until Shmuel took the kingship away from Shaul after the story with Amalek, but of course he continued to reign with David being a thorn in his side.
Oh, that's interesting. So there's an interesting thought that he reigned exclusively for 2 years. And then Shmuel said, "You've mucked up with Amalek." And we had the business of the tearing of the robe. And Shmuel says, "That's it, you're off." But he did continue to be king. David was not crowned.
And he's anointed David as well.
And he's anointed David. So yes, okay. We need to do a little bit more research into this, don't we? And get all the different opinions on how long Saul reigned. Let's just do a quick Google search on the screen. How long did Saul reign over Israel? Let's see what comes up with that. 42 years. 42 years, says the New International Version. Not sure we can rely on that. Let's see if we can find something Jewish in this list. These are all non-Jewish sources. Let's see if we can find something Jewish. These are all Christian sources. Okay, nothing obvious.
Do you want to hear what Steinsaltz has to say on this one, Johnny?
Oh, I do, yes.
And 2 years he reigned. It is difficult to imagine that all the events that occurred during Saul's reign were condensed into a mere 2 years. Although some of the sages accept this statement literally. See Sefer Olam, etc. One interpretation is that Saul had reigned for 2 years when the following episode occurred, based on the Radak. Others offer a similar suggestion that he reigned in peace and security for 2 years before the wars began. Another explanation is that Saul reigned for 2 years until David was anointed, an act that essentially terminated Saul's rule, although in practice he remained king for a longer period. See Sefer HaPrim.
Okay, so that's interesting. The Steinsaltz actually quotes all the opinions that we just gave.
Yeah,
which is great. That's super. That shows that we're all thinking along good lines.
And by the way, he also says that from the first verse that literally it means Saul was 1 year old when he came to reign.
Yeah. We talked about that back in the time when we did that. Ben Shana Shaul b'Molacho means that he was 1 year old when he started his reign, which obviously he wasn't. So it's a problematic pasuk. But it's very interesting. I will do a bit more research, although it sounds like Steinsaltz done it for us and given us a summary. I'll see if I can find anything different. But so the simple explanation is that it was 2 years. The more logical explanation is that it was longer than 2 years, and that either the events of chapter 13 took place after 2 years, or as David suggested, it was 2 years that he reigned before David was anointed, or it was 2 years that he reigned in peace before all the wars began, which is a bit similar to the first thing that we said. Really interesting. Let's go back to our chapter and see where we're up to. So in any event, David stayed with Achish a period of time, whether it was 16 months or 4 months, doesn't really matter. It was a significant period of time. And verse 8, we'll just do verse 8 and then we'll maybe 9 as well, and then we'll stop.
David and his men went up and spread out against the Geshurite and the Gezrite and the Amalekite, for they were the original inhabitants of the land from where you approach shore until the land of Egypt.
Stop there for a second. If Saul reigned for 2 years only, we've got another problem there, haven't we? What problem have we got if he only reigned for 2 years?
Well,
what did he do that he lost his kingship for?
He didn't kill.
He didn't top all the Amalekites.
Well, he did top all the
They
Amalekites
cattle
apart from
their
one.
wives.
Apart from one. Who did he leave
He
alive?
left Agag alive too.
Agag. So if he killed everybody apart from Agag, how come there's some Amalekites for David to attack? They were all dead apart from Agag.
Because he took spoil. He took the cattle. He took.
He impregnated a woman before he was killed by.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's true, Billy. But that was only 2 years ago. That kid's only a year old. If we say that Saul only reigned for 2 years, then there can't be any Amalekites because they were all killed apart from Agag. So that's another issue that we've got with Saul only reigning for 2 years. If this took place many years later, there was time for the Amalekites to replicate a bit more, and they probably joined in with the Geshurites and the Gizirites and all those ites. But if
before David was anointed, Johnny.
Yeah, but we've just said that if Saul only reigned for 2 years, he did that while he was king. So it can only be a maximum of 2 years, which can't be enough to have the Amalekites. Anyway, that's where a problem with that passed up. Let's just go back to our map. Oh, where's our map gone? There's our map. Can you see the map? So there's the Girzites. There's the Geshurites. So you can see why the people who say that Ziklag is over here have said that, because he was going in and doing lightning strikes against these people and these people. And why? Because they were enemies of the Philistines. So Achish has in effect employed David as a mercenary to keep these marauding enemies at bay. And that is what David did in verse 8 and verse 9. But look what he did in verse 9, and we'll finish with this. Verse 9, Jeffrey.
David would smite the land and would not leave a man or woman alive. He would take sheep and cattle and donkeys and camels and clothing and would return and come to Achish.
Okay, stop there. So David goes into these lands. He goes into these places, Girzites and Geshurites, and he kills everybody. And he brings the spoil to Achish. And that is where we will stop on a cliffhanger, because what we're going to find out, if you don't want a spoiler, don't read on. We're going to find out that David was not exactly straight with Achish in the next few verses. He goes to these places, he kills everybody, he brings the spoil to Achish, and please God, next time, it will not be next week or the week after. It might be next week because I'm flying next Sunday, but I'm not sure whether I'm flying in the morning or the afternoon. I'll let you know. If I'm flying in the afternoon, we'll do a share in the morning. If not, it'll have to wait. But next time we will find out what David tells Achish about his raids into these places. Yes, David?
Yeah, Yamim. There's another instance of Yamim from our own book that we should have looked at.
Go on.
From the very beginning of the book of Shmuel, where Yamim means years.
What chapter?
The first chapter, I think the first couple of verses.
There it is on the screen for you, chapter 1. Let's have a quick look. Oh, Yamima, Miyamim Yamima.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Yes, let's have a look at that. Jeffrey, on the screen, read for us verses 1, 2, and 3.
And there was one man from Ramathaim Zophim from Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, and Ephraimite. And he had 2 wives. The name was, one was Hannah, and the second was Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. And that man was wont to go up from his city from appointed time to appointed time, to prostrate himself and to slaughter peace offerings to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And there were the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Pinchas, were serving the Lord.
So he would go up, and we've got here from appointed time to appointed time. Miyamim Yamima. And that means on a yearly basis. Once a year, he would go up and do his offerings. And then we had the whole story that Hannah wouldn't eat, etc. Yamim, Yamima means from time to time. It means on a yearly basis. He would do his annual pilgrimage to the temple or to the Mishkan in Shiloh and do that. Very good, David. Excellent. Another example of Yamim meaning a year. Okay, any other points, questions, complaints?
Just a question.
Yes, Barbara.
Did David do these raids on these other people on Achish's instruction?
Well, you will wait and see next time.
Okay, I'll come back.
Come back and you'll see next time the answer to that question. Any other questions or points?
The fact that he does the raids means it sounds like he was in residence for quite a period of time, and 4 months and 2 days or whatever doesn't sound like enough time to do all these raids and all these killings. I
agree, and also doesn't, as I said earlier, it's not enough time for him to gain Achish's confidence. I agree. I think it means longer than that. I agree. All right. Okay. Well, maybe I'll see you next week, or maybe not. Depending on the time of my flight. But then if it's not next week, it will be next time, and we will carry on from there.